Okay.
No!
Michael Myers.
Jason was made in 2007!
I like how he looks, and I like the lights in his ball thing, but other than that, this prop isn't very good. The phrases are stupid, the animation is weird as fuck, and those ghetto-ass lights on his face look horrible. As you can probably tell by now, I do not like this prop in the slightest. Okay, this thing is just straight up awful, and I don't blame Spirit for putting her online only. This one's actually fairly decent. It feels like an older Spirit prop, and the animation and the audio are also good. Definitely one of the better props this year by far. This thing is fucking huge, and that's cool, but other than that, this prop is mid as fuck. This thing could have been so good, but the audio just straight up ruins it. This thing also has literally like no blood, and the face is just completely warped. This is an example of how not to make a zombie prop. This is just the most lazy fucking thing ever, but it's growing on me because it's crouchy, and I don't like that. He's good. I don't know why he's filler though, as he's a servo prop, and that's like supposed to be, you know, advanced technology. This is one of the stronger props this year though. Really like this head sculpt. This thing is fucking horrible. It does absolutely goddamn nothing, except for the bag moving. This could have been so good. Why did you have to end up making it genuinely one of the worst props of all time? Now this is how every zombie from Modern Spirit should be. Riddled with detail, fitting animation for the character, and audio that isn't horrible and annoying. This is definitely up there with my boy, who I can't talk about yet, because he's not going to be out for a while, as the best props of the year. This is fucking horrible. If you're going to bring back little fucking Skelly Bones, bring him back like how he was originally. This new approach to flashbacks is genuinely terrible. We want to prop back because we like the original for how it was. We don't want it completely revamped like how this fucking thing is. By far the worst prop of the year, and it's probably the worst thing Spirit or any company has ever sold. Now this one is actually good. Unique animation and phrases that actually fit him, and a very good design. Definitely in my top favorites of this year. Okay, so back when me and my homies found this, back when it was called Convulsing Clown, we all thought it was made by Techie. We were like, holy shit, this sounds fucking awesome. But no, this prop is made by Yu, so it'll break all that much faster and probably melt its wires together like my reanimated corpse did. I do like the face though. It is very nice looking, and I do like that it just has pure black eyes. A disappointing one, but an okay one overall. This is just the Home Depot Goblin, but without the Goblin and the Spirit logo slapped on the bag. When I first saw the leaked manual image of this prop, I thought he was super nice, and I would still think that if he actually banged his symbols together, or at least moved them faster. He's fine, but just extremely underwhelming. This is probably my favorite of the in-store props this year. Looks really nice, has good animation and all the other shiz you need for a good prop, but the fact that his price is extremely high is a significant con of this item. The working name that this had, which was Toxic Clown, had a lot of potential, and although it is very good, a Toxic Clown prop could be much better. Hopefully eventually we do see another Toxic Clown prop though, or just more toxic props, as the toxic concept hasn't really been done yet that much. Back when I saw the video of him that Spirit released, I absolutely fucking hated this prop simply because of the audio, but after seeing videos of him that show the rest of his phrases, I actually quite like him now. Looks good, and is apparently fucking huge, but that one phrase that's just genuinely fucking ass holds him back. Okay, I'm gonna be completely honest right now. This one is honestly one I kind of like, as it gives off heavy old Spirit vibes. Overall, not a very bad prop, but I can see why people hate it. This is fine on its own, but compared to the Morbid version, which had much better detail, more animation, and a more possessed and grotesque looking face, it isn't very good. When I heard there was going to be a new Reagan prop, I was like, oh, this could be so cool if it had a projectile vomiting misting effect or something. It would be boring though if it just did the head spinning animation again. And what happened? It just spins its head and shoots a Pazuzu face out of its back. I'll admit, I do like the head sculpt even though I prefer the older ones, and I do like that she has white straps around her arms. Just wish there is a bit more going on with her though. Also, why can't you just sell the projector separately? Maybe with an option to also project the other face from that band trailer. People, including myself, would buy the shit out of that. This was originally going to be its own video, but I was like, fuck it, I'll just shove it into this video instead. Now, one of the main problems with this year is that nothing really stands out and yells, hey, I really have to get this. It's all still good, but nothing's that good. And the prices this year are just genuinely fucking horrible. And I see people blaming inflation, but even with inflation, these props are way more than they should be. Something like Reagan should only be at least, at most $200 and nothing more. $280 is a horrible price with something with only one movement and a projection light. Nozzles is another example, basically just another $200 max clown, but with an optional fog feature that's for some reason $350. The fog feature shouldn't make it skyrocket in price. It was never like that before. And with the if the fog machine doesn't even come with him, then why does he have to be so much more expensive? If you want to charge $350, at least give him a fog machine like Distortions does with their props. Props back then also used to be priced in terms of quality more than quantity. Tech E props were always the cheapest, as they lasted the least and were usually smallest. Then Tillux statics, or statics in general, were next, as although they were life-size and riddled with detail, they were still statics and they just stood there and maybe lit up. And then there were Magic Power, Pan Asian Creations, Morbid, or Easewald props that were large but had hit or miss quality. And then SVI and YJ props were next as they were life-size and fairly good quality. And then there were the bulky, detailed, highly animated, good quality, licensed, gemmy life sizes being the highest at usually at least $250 per unit. Now it's based off of how much movement it has, and a shitty quality, poorly welded, terribly made Woyu prop can be the same price as an amazing quality, detailed and long-lasting YJ prop. The themes are another thing that should be improved. I'm not saying the displays this year are bad. I honestly think they're the best modern post-2015 spirit themes that we've gotten so far. But why are there clowns, farm bags, or tombstones in a lab theme? I get there's supposed to be lore behind them. That isn't going to be known by average Joe and Little Timmy who just walk into Spirit to get a costume just because they feel like it. It's honestly kind of a cheap excuse to be able to shove everything in. How they could fix this though is by having multiple differently themed displays instead of just having one, like before 2018, as this is the perfect compromise, as they can still have a variety of props, but they don't also always have to fit with a specific theme. The themes are also too bright now, and what I mean by that is that everything is more out in the open than it used to be, and there aren't as many things in the themes to give animatronics some shade and let there be room for cool lighting to set the mood of the theme. This isn't very important and kind of nitpicky, but I wanted to point it out anyways. Props in general also feel less scary and gory than before. Like now in props like the Butcher and Buzzsaw need blood and they don't, it doesn't make much sense. Now I like the Butcher and I like Buzzsaw, but they both severely lacked in blood. Same thing with Punctured Pete, a zombie prop that's impaled that only has a tiny bit of blood that's barely noticeable inside of the shirt, looks bad, and it feels like they're pandering to family channels now. Back then I saw people of all ages going into Spirit, toddlers, teenagers, adults, hell I even saw some old people in there a couple times, and I rarely saw any of them become scared at all. And other than the animatronic, Spirit is just as gory as they used to be. Just look at the tabletops and home decor stuff this year. So I don't see why they can't just have some of that kind of stuff be in the animatronic department too. Everything is also just much less sinister than before. The concepts are still there, like Ophelia, for example, is a very good concept, but the extremely strange way she looks and how bright she and the demon are ruins the effect. There are still genuinely scary props though, like Harvester of Souls and Mr. Dark, that genuinely feel like something right out of Old Spirit. The whole lineup isn't like that anymore though, and that's the main issue. Everything used to be sinister, even if there was something goofy like Wacky Mole or Linolister. Wacky Mole is basically an off-brand Killer Clowns Matter space clown, so he looked very goofy, but he still had a bloody mallet and was threatening to murder people. Linolister was a generic-looking pumpkin scarecrow on a swing, but he still talked about playing with dead bodies. This kind of goes into another issue I have with the themes and just the story layout in general. For example, in 2014, we had a lighter tone but still scary theme in the front with witches, scarecrows, and werewolves, and then in the middle we had a somewhat darker theme with people being electrocuted and possessed girls bending backwards and breaking their spines. And in the back we had the darkest theme, which had zombies with bullet holes, scarecrows holding a severed head that's choking on its own blood, and other things of that nature. This was because the front was always the theme that everyone always saw and couldn't really avoid seeing, and as you went back further, you kind of had to go out of your way to find them until you got to the very back where the theme that was darkest in tone was by far was at the back, and you had to go out of your way to find it. This is actually how they should be doing themes, but now everything's just sort of thrown into a display, and the back theme is no longer actually in the back of the store, but just sort of thrown in the middle. This is honestly a terrible way to do the themes. It's the back theme for a reason, and it's called the back theme because it's the back of the store. The last thing I want to talk about is something that's definitely one of the main issues of Spirit this year, and that is the absolutely horrible sneak peek schedule, if you can even call them sneak peeks anymore. See, back then and up until 2021, they would slowly post their lineup of 20 or so props starting from late June until early July, and they would usually release three or so a week, and it was a very good schedule and it kept people hyped. However, last year they decided to change it with this graveyard shift thing, which had multiple teasers that showed glimpses of new props including Whack-A-Mole, Mr. Dark, and others, until on July 15th they released the trailer to the graveyard shift, which showed 10 or so props and glimpsed all but one of the 10 or so other props from that year. It was flawed, but it felt like there was something happening though, as they were showing teasers, glimpsing props along the way. This year, however, for the Experiment 1031 thing, they only ever glimpsed one prop beforehand back in May in the Halfway to Halloween teaser, and after that, it was just random videos of people running around an abandoned building. And after like a month of waiting, we then finally got the main Experiment 1031 video on the 20th, and it was horrible. We saw props, but only for like a second each, and the main focus was on the story, of which you needed to listen to a podcast beforehand to even understand, or in my case, watched Aiden's video on it, which is objectively the best way to get filled out on what the podcast was about, besides reading the article on it on the Spirit Halloween wiki. And also, the actors in this 1031 video were genuinely awful, and I've seen some horrible acting.
I am documenting our research. Duh.
For when this is supposed to be set in the 90s, yeah, these people clearly aren't from the 90s, but just some random people who agreed to shoot this video on a random afternoon. And then after a month, Spirit only released 5 of their props alongside this video thing, and half of them weren't even the good ones. And everyone was mad, so the next day they just dumped everything on the catalog listings, and people just uploaded it to YouTube. A perfect and flawless release schedule. Overall, I don't really dislike this year that much, but honestly, it's still the weakest lineup Spirit's ever put out. There are some very good things, but most of everything is held back by at least one factor. Nozzle's overpriced as shit, Lord Raymond is overpriced, Possessed Pumpkin has that one horrible phrase, and so on and so on. There are redeeming factors of this year that still make it a good one, like the highly improved shipment schedules, by far the best themes out of Modern Spirit, and that one's to feel straight out of Old Spirit, and at least in my area, much more nostalgic location placement. That's all I really have to say about this year, honestly. I do think the next year will be much better, as it's their 40th anniversary, and they're basically obligated to do something special. Also, please just go back to normal flashbacks. This new approach is horrible.
Greetings, creeps! It's your old pal, the Crypt Keeper, and it's Halloween thrills and doers. That's a very pretty face you have there. You should look even prettier decorating my porch with a candle in your mouth.
Your hands upon a dead man's gun, and you're looking down the sights. Your heart is worn, and the seams are torn, and they've given you a reason to fight. And you're not gonna take what they've got to give, and you're not gonna let them take your will to live, because they've taken enough, and you've given them all you can give, and luck won't save them tonight. They've given you a reason to fight, and all the storms you've been chasing about to rain down tonight.